listening to a very special and almost improvised episode. Well, not improvised, but a sudden episode of the Unmasked Agenda. Originally, we were going to take a break this week, but um, we decided to try to get in a show, and hopefully we have a guest for the show because it seems like guest is running a little bit late, so party foul. But we are hoping that we get a superhero landing from Seattle's one and only Red Ranger. So back in 2010 and 2014, we were witness to a phenomenon that you usually hear about almost as a self-parody in the tabloids, or if you're from back east like myself, that maybe you'll see in an Inquirer article alongside Bat Boy, but the presence of superheroes or people dressed up in these elaborate costumes running around and trying to fight crime, or as it's known in legal parlance, vigilantism. And right now we have our own superhero here in Seattle, the Red Ranger of Seattle, if he ever shows up. But let's talk a little bit about what is going on. So feel free to what's going on here in Seattle as well as around the country. So currently we have we're seeing a larger conversation around surveillance here in Seattle, particularly in, if my guest ever shows up, then by the way, Daniel, should we boo him if do a little hazing? Should we do a little hazing? What do you think? Oh, come on. Okay. While he finds the appropriate sound, which I'm kind of, the anticipation's building. So you guys don't see this at home, but my producer sometimes will go back and forth with some sound effects, and I'm curious as to which one he picks out to answer my question. Little hazing, just a little bit. Anyway, but jokes aside. Ooh, that's harsh. Oh, that's harsh. Okay, wait, hold on. Before we bring him on, because we do have a guest, albeit he's a little bit late. So for our listeners out there, what kind of sound effect should we do? Let's see. What do you think? What do you think? Something? I know. Come on. Let's be a little mischievous.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. So finally, with a lot of improvised delaying and building up the anticipation, we would like to welcome the Red Ranger of Seattle to our show.
How's it going, everybody?
Hey, good. Daniel, hit him with the sound effects. So we're joking around at the top of the show of what sound effects we should haze you with. Just a little friendly hazing, just because you were a little late, but we're really glad you're here.
Apologies, technical difficulties, man. Even superheroes have them for sure.
I mean, honestly, if we're talking about technical difficulties, I mean, if we're thinking about some of the best comic book stories, Tower of Babel on DC side, Age and Rage of Ultron on the Marvel side of things. Also Not All Robots, AWA Upshot. So some of the best stories have literally been caused by technical difficulties in their universe. So don't worry about it. Anyway, how are you doing?
Not so bad today. Thank you very much for asking.
Yeah. So were you able to weather the storm last night, or was there a lot of debris in your neighborhood? Or
Oh yeah. I mean, there's debris everywhere. It was I think we've got something around 50-mile-an-hour winds. Pretty intense. I hope everybody else out there stayed safe.
absolutely. So speaking of safety, let's dive into your story. What what made you don this persona of the Red Ranger and do what you do?
Sure. Happy to get into it. And then once again, thank you so much, Cliff, for having me. So yeah, back in around 2013, right? I had just really gotten into my work here in Seattle in the medical scene, working and interning in the hospitals and in the ERs here in Seattle. And it had got to this point where I'm living in one of the most affluent cities, in the country at the time. And, whether I'm at work or whether I'm at home, right on your doorstep, you see victims of violence, you see victims of inequality, and social injustice for sure. Just everywhere, right? And it's like in one of the most affluent cities on in the country, right? Why is that? Why is that something that's seemingly allowed? So I really got a little bit fed up with it. You know, I kind of resolved myself at that time that if I can do anything to remedy or fix that issue that I was seeing day in and day out, that I would do that. And I had heard of the Seattle superheroes kind of before that,
Mhm.
more or less. And yeah, we we I kind of just I took what I had, which at the time was simply a red Power Ranger costume and like a Halloween costume, right? And that's kind of all I had because I wanted to conceal my identity because I didn't want what I was about to do to be about me, right? Um, I didn't want the I really wanted the idea of what the kind of help I wanted to give to people to be at the forefront and not me personally.
Mhm.
So I took this red Power Ranger costume, I put it on, and I always remember that first day. It kind of was like that scene in Kick-Ass, right? The movie,
Yeah.
uh, where I'm looking at myself in the mirror dressed in a Halloween costume, and I had a bag full of waters and granola bars that I was going to go into my neighborhood and start giving out to the multitudes of homeless people that, like I saw on my doorstep, right? That were hungry and needed at least somebody looking after them, right? And
Right.
I remember thinking to myself, you are absolutely crazy. Um, and truth be told, that voice is still in my head every single time I put this thing on.
Right.
Um, yeah. And but I went out there, right? And I started doing that, at least a few times a week. I would just do it pretty regularly. At first I wouldn't even talk. I wouldn't even, use my voice. I would just go up to people, hand them stuff, they'd say thank you, I'd give them a little salute, and I'd be on my way to the next group. Um, and I'd started developing a little bit of a relationship with folks at that time. Um, and I remember there were a few people who definitely testified to me that, I had saved their lives, that they were not only on the breaking point mentally, but, physically starving, physically thirsty. And then some weird guy in a bright red suit shows up and gives them food and water. So people around the neighborhood that I had been working in started calling me the Red Ranger. Um, and that's kind of how it started, right? That for me,
Yeah.
the name ended up sticking. Here we are, about 13 years later, and uh, the name's still here and the mission's still here.
So, in that case, I kind of want to just jump around a little bit in some of the questions I had, because it really sounds like you are frustrated with this status quo that was that's characterized by, and still very much so, by economic inequality, social injustice, and this kind of gap between the haves and the have-nots in our society. So why, why didn't well, I won't necessarily say why didn't you, but did you consider in doing this like advocacy, or like joining an advocacy organization, or like supporting like a nonprofit organization, or launching one yourself
Yeah.
in order to address these things? Yeah, and also like what do if in considering that, like what did you think about other organizations that were trying to address these same problems you saw out in the streets?
So not I and that's a great question. So I did join other organizations just as myself, right? As
Right.
my secret civilian identity. And I still engage in humanitarian work, not only as Red Ranger, but as my secret identity also. Um,
So wait,
and
saying
there,
the activist scene, we have a superhero among us? Oh, that is so cool. Okay, sorry, keep going. That was like, yeah,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no. So in my civilian identity, I also engage in humanitarian work. I don't keep it a secret either that, I am a trauma nurse. And I still like that's my secret identity at my secret day job, right? My secret identity. I don't go into too much detail, but I like people to know the experience I have and what I do with my time and the skills that I have that allow me to help other people. And you know, I originally I did get involved with all that, but you know, I just kind of saw that even with all that, I was still seeing the problem, right?
mhm,
And I was like, I just was kind of racking my brain at first, like, what can we do to really magnify the efforts that we can put into fixing this problem? And I
mm,
thought, well, if there is a faceless sort of idea that people can rally behind, um,
mm.
that might get some extra traction, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly
Was another motivator.
absolutely. And, I mean, I think it's certainly something that honestly we see in real life with how people think of fictional characters, and some of the values that people derive from both fictional characters, from historical figures that inspire them, that it's more about those values than the actual person or persona itself. So in that case, can you tell? So kind of building from that, one of the things that I'm a huge comic book nerd. I just eat them up. I'm sure you are as well. I love film.
What gave you the idea?
Right, exactly, right. Look at what I'm talking to, of course. Um, and one of the things we often get into is, oh my God, well, what if it was like this in real life? What if there were superheroes, vigilantes, these kind of villains of like giant, larger in life proportions. But I'm wondering for you, as someone who is a self-styled superhero, what, how does that question land for you, given your experiences? Like, what are the kind of ethical, or I don't know, theoretical or even personal complexities that have arisen for you when thinking about that question?
Sure. So, like, the question just being, what if we had superheroes in real life?
Yeah, like I mean, you're trying
It
to look at like
Sure.
how does it work
I
for
would
you?
offer I would offer not trying, doing. And
Yeah,
the what if is not so much a what if anymore. We have them, and I'm not the only one, and I haven't been the only one. I'm not the first. I won't be the last. Um, and and it doesn't take a radioactive spider bite or super strength or the ability to fly to be a superhero. I don't think. I try and tell people all the time that you don't need to have this suit to do what I do. And I could be anybody under this mask. And that's kind of the point, right? That's one of the points of the anonymity is like I said, I could be you, I could be your neighbor, I could be all of us underneath this mask, and anybody should be able to see themselves under here.
Yeah.
Anybody should be able to see their face underneath my mask. And because what I do, like, my only superpower is conviction. And we all have that. We all have it beaten in our chest. It doesn't take any level of extraordinary circumstances for you to decide that you're going to do what you can to help the problems that you see in the world. So whether that's going and giving out a bag full of granola bars to the homeless people that you see in your neighborhood, the people that you see that are hungry in your neighborhood, or going to your local animal shelter and volunteering, your local hospital and volunteering, sitting with people who are sick, dying, incarcerated, sitting with people who need support, just going to a soup kitchen and making dinner a couple nights, like, these are all things we can all do, and they make such a positive impact, especially to those who are suffering, and they see, wow, someone took the time out of their day to come and care for someone they didn't know, because they know that that's necessary and they care. That gives people hope, and hope is this power that's what lifts people up. That's what's going to fix these problems.
Absolutely.
Not however much money we can dump into whatever program, which, not bashing, that's all great, but hope is the thing that's going to lift people out of it. That's going to lift people out of the effects of these problems that I earlier identified: social injustice and violence and victimization and victimhood.
So,
So,
of course, absolutely. So I do want to ask one more question, and then I want to veer before we go to our break. I want to veer into a couple of policy related questions because I feel like what you're doing right now does intersect with larger conversations. In fact, before you came, one of the things that I was going to just kind of muse about is a conversation around surveillance in Seattle. But we'll get to that in a second. So tell us a little bit more about ECHO, the Emerald City Heroes organization, because you mentioned earlier, and from what I've seen from from your socials, you are not the only superhero we have in Seattle.
no, not by far. And ECHO is the organization that I currently lead. And again, that's ECHO, Emerald City Heroes Organization. And I wasn't the one to found it, actually. A lot of people call me the founder. I'm just the current leader. Actually, it was founded almost a year before I joined, by my mentor and one of the original Seattle superheroes, El Caballero, who used to work in the Rain City superhero movement, with Phoenix Jones, who I also have worked alongside in my time. And just kind of to give people background on how it started, right? When I was doing the Halloween costume stuff way back in 2013, and I had kind of gotten this little bit of a reputation from the people that I was helping, and people started calling me the Red Ranger. El Caballero, and at the time the original members who are still with us, right? Like Avocadus, who was also on the Rain City superhero movement. He's still with us on ECHO. Him and at the time we had some others, Westlake Drake, Dragon. They're on patrol, and they would hear, "Oh, you must be with that Red Ranger guy." And they're like, "Who? Who's that?" And then just by, serendipity, we happened to cross paths one night. And they said, "Oh, you must be that Red Ranger guy." I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're El Caballero. I know who you are." "Yeah, that's me." And they invited me to patrol with them. I finished that patrol with them, and the rest is history. I became part of the group.
So real
Years
life.
later, what's that?
So a real life crossover then.
Kinda, yeah. That's how it all happened. That's how it all started. Years later, now a lot of the original members have kind of taken a back seat, and but I'm still here, and I've kind of taken up the leadership role in the organization. And we do have now several active members still with the group. Like I said, Avocadus, we have White Baron, we have Crow. A lot of people know Crow with us now. He's one of our newer members. We Mischievous, Black Rose, Yeah, lots of us are still on the scene, and just here to continue the original mission. And that original mission, right, was just
Yeah.
in kind of an answer to, and we can get into the Rain City superhero movement and the drama that happened there and a little bit later, but you know, in a response to falling out of Phoenix Jones's team, we wanted to keep the mission alive, right?
Hmm.
And it's just to answer those injustices that I talked about earlier. We wanted to be an answer that people could look to and get hope. And we wanted to actually make a positive difference in our community and show that you don't need really anything other than a will to do it, right?
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, we're all self-funded. I don't get any crazy funding from any shadow organizations or nothing. This is all, and even our outreaches, right, are pretty entirely self-funded, right? They all come out of our own pockets.
So, so in that case, I hate to bring it back to the big two. So basically, just like the Avengers, y'all don't get paid.
Correct. Yeah, we do not get paid. This is all volunteer work.
Yep.
Yeah,
Which,
that's why I still have my day job, right?
right, exactly. Yeah, yeah. It's like even superheroes do need to eat. Superheroes got to pay
Yeah,
got to pay a mortgage. So
absolutely.
kind of speaking of that, I do want to, and I have so many other questions. Which after the commercial, and we're not coming on to the commercial now. We still have 5 minutes before that, but I want to circle. I want to pivot into a policy question because with great power comes great responsibility, and particularly with what you're doing, it does raise some concerns. I think some of the viewers would have
Sure.
around it's basically what happens if superheroes use excessive force, and then B, how do you feel about the question of surveillance in Seattle? Because a number of residents are looking to the current mayor to dismantle the surveillance infrastructure in which a good chunk of Seattleites are subject to every day, just going outside, flock cameras,
Sure.
CCTV cameras, whatnot. So, yeah, just kind of a compound question. One, how do you feel about the possibility of a superhero using excessive force? How should they held be accountable? How should they be held accountable? And then, second half of that question is, how do you feel about surveillance? Like, do you think we should have surveillance cameras everywhere?
Right. Yeah, no, and thank you for the questions. So I'll start with the first half, right? What happens when a superhero uses excessive force? Unfortunately, this isn't much of a thought experiment, right? Because we've seen it happen. In fact,
Right.
if people who know Phoenix Jones know that there's a bit of a scandalous history there where he did several times. In fact, I've witnessed it.
Yeah.
Didn't agree with it at the time, and he and I had some discussions about that at the time. But there were times when he was, very publicly flamed for using excessive force, and he was prosecuted for it.
Yeah.
This led to his big unmasking, right, event that he did on live TV, um, and he had to go to court, and he was prosecuted. And I think that in our job, right, and this is something I go over with my entire team, right, is we study the RCWs, we study the local law and the local ordinances on use of force when lawful, and we train to always use the minimal force required. Typically, especially in violent situations, physical force is not even the first thing we go to. And if you check out my pages and my videos, you'll see that. We always try to de-escalate situations and not use physical violence whenever possible. I do carry a variety of self-defense tools and non-lethals. I do carry a bulletproof shield.
Mhm.
I am martially trained. I don't like to use any of those things, even when we have to. Another rule that I have on patrol is if we have the capability to harm a person, if we have to, then we carry the ability to unharm them as best as possible. For example, if I have to use OC spray or my pepper gun on a person who's perpetrating a crime, especially
Mhm.
a violent crime, then I carry in my kit also Sudicon wipes. which are a medicated wipe that alleviates the effect of OC spray, right? And the idea behind that is we're not out there to hurt people. I'm not out there to cause people pain. I'm out there to stop crime. I'm out there to protect people. I'm out there to do the best I can for my community. None of that has the goal of causing anybody harm, even if you are committing a crime.
So just really quick before getting on surveillance thing, and we could go back to the surveillance second half in our second half, or rather the second half of the question about surveillance and our second half of the show. But I guess when it comes to accountability, though, even though I know for me, I would love to see like the police structured in a different way. Ultimately, they have to go through police academy, and there's a process, and then they're licensed, like they are official law enforcement arm of the state, rather of government, local government. But you guys don't go through that, even though you train yourselves. So I mean, why and this will sound like a kind of harsh question, but to be honest, why should you be able to do what you do?
I can do so that's a great question. The answer is everybody can do what I do. I'm not a vigilante. I don't break the law in doing what I do. Every use of force that I use is legally allowed for any citizen to do. I don't carry lethal weapons. And even if I did, I would be, beholden to the law on that use of force, right? But a big difference between me and the police, right, is A, and we like to stress this on our team, we don't go into a power trip about it or anything like that. And especially we don't carry the ability to do lethal harm. I suppose anything can do lethal harm with enough with enough effort, right? Yeah, exactly. But no, we don't carry. Not only are we not trying to do harm whenever possible, and that's always our last resort, and we train on that. We don't carry the ability to do lethal harm. I do not carry lethal armaments with me on patrol. I don't go into my whole kit, but no, I don't carry the ability to lethally harm a person. And why should people trust, though, us when we're out there to do what we do? And this was a question I actually grappled with a lot when I was first starting out. But at the end of the day, what I kind of found was, and this is a response that I get from lots of people when they're out there that see us out there helping people, is they're happy to see us there. And the fact is that people do end up trusting us because they know what we're here to do. The results end up speaking for themselves. I don't go out there kicking butts and taking names. I go out there looking to help my community. And I feel like after, over a decade of doing that, you develop enough of a rapport with the community that, and that's what we want, right? That's why we wear these recognizable costumes. So that when people see us, they know we're there to help.
Oh, no, it's all right. I was going to say, I apologize for interrupting you, but we do have to pivot to our commercials. But when we come right back, we'll jump right into talking about trust and surveillance and learning more about becoming a Seattle superhero and the whole history behind that. And with that, for those that might just be tuning in, you are listening to the Unmasked Agenda here at Rainier Avenue Radio. We are interviewing the Red Ranger himself of Seattle. You might have seen him out on patrol, but our own superhero and leader of our own superhero team, Echo, the Emerald City Heroes organization. And feel free to donate to us online through Venmo at Rainier Avenue Radio. And that is Venmo at Rainier Avenue Radio or online at rainieravenueradio.world/donate. And we will be right back.
Would you like to see when your favorite Rainier Avenue Radio show comes on? Check out our show schedule, updated weekly at rainieravenue.radio.world.
South Seattle, this one's for you. Join us for the annual Fast Basketball Empowerment Camp honoring the legendary Slick Watts. The theme, thanks for the love. This is more than basketball. This is about community. Look, all ages, all genders, co-ed, and the whole family. You can expect skill building, wellness activities, family workshops, community resources, and a co-ed 3-on-3 tournament for youth, adults, and there'll be a special celebrity division. We're building stronger families and safer communities by honoring Slick's legacy the right way, by bringing the village together. Look, you can register now and come be part of something powerful at FathersAndSonsTogether.org or search Fathers and Sons Together on Eventbrite.
This is Big Poppy, host of Jazz from the Cabinets. Join me for a weekly eclectic journey through the past 100 years of jazz. Dixieland, big band, bebop, West Coast cool, hard bop, avant-garde, fusion, world jazz, and contemporary. Jazz from the Cabinets with Big Poppy on Rainier Avenue Radio.world premieres every Tuesday at 6 p.m. and is rebroadcast Thursdays at 3 p.m., overnight from Friday to Saturday at 2 a.m., Saturday mornings at 10 a.m., and Sunday evenings at 5 p.m.
Do you want to reach out to the Vietnamese community in Seattle? Just advertise in Le Viet Bach, that is Northwest Vietnamese News, the longest running Vietnamese language newspaper in our region. Go to nvnorthwest.com.
Happy Hump Day. Hump Day. We're excited that you decided to join us for the party. Fresh Juice is live Wednesday night, 9 to 11 p.m. Pacific time on Seattle's Rainier Avenue Radio with the Juice Pack, including me, Superstar TK, Pint-Sized Patron, and D-Money. We're going to chop it up with some cool people, play some really dope new hip-hop and R&B music, some games, and maybe even a live performance. Lock us in right now on Fresh Juice YouTube page at youtube.com/@Fresh Juice Media or subscribe to us on Spotify or Apple Music. Fresh Juice.
This winter, I don't want illness to get in the way of my holiday plans. That's why I got my annual flu and COVID shot. Everyone ages 6 months and older and get the flu and COVID shot each year. They make it less likely you'll get sick, and even if you do get infected, you won't get as sick. Free vaccines are available even if you don't have health insurance. For more information, visit kingcounty.gov/find-a-clinic. That's kingcounty.gov/find-a-clinic.
You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Don't forget to log on www.rainieravenue radio.world.
Are back, and you are listening to the Unmasked Agenda here on Rainier Avenue Radio, and I have the opportunity to speak with the one, the only, Seattle's, most visible and apparently lead hero right now, the Red Ranger, the leader of the Emerald City Heroes organization, and also a fun fact, a trauma nurse. So, first of all, one thing I forgot to say is thank you for your service, not just on the streets, but also as a medical professional and everything you've had to deal with the last 5 years, not to mention our health secretary right now on national level that thinks that bleach and crystals are somehow medicine. So,
thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Happy to do it, and not stopping anytime soon.
Right on. So that being said, let's go back. You were talking about how you build trust with the community. I asked you about what you thought about the question of surveillance cameras and mass surveillance here in Seattle. So if you could elaborate on both of those, that would be
Sure. Yeah. And again, thank you for the question. So, picking up where I left off, just, there is no special qualification that we have. We wear masks. We're anonymous when we go out and help our community. But we hope that through our work that people see and know and trust that we're there with with only the best intentions. We want our communities to do well, not only in Seattle, but in the world at large. And I hope that any of our audience or any fans that we have, take that to heart, that, not only are we here to help, but so are they. So, it all relies on, just the opinions in the heart that we have. But, piggybacking off of trust, right? I think that's a great segue into this other question, right, of public surveillance, which I haven't actually been asked my opinion on this before. So thank you again for the question. I know that Mayor Katie Wilson has spoken a bit about this and had kind of a bit of a back and forth opinion on it. Personally, if you were to ask, my personal opinion, I can see a benefit of both arguments, right? I can see how some increased surveillance can lead to more accountability when it comes to people who commit crimes, and easier it can make certain things easier to litigate when it comes to people who commit violent crimes. I've heard testimonies from families that say that, these surveillance technologies in place have helped bring justice for their loved ones that have been the victims of violent crime. And I also, of course, hear the opposite side of that scenario, which is, people don't like to be unnecessarily surveilled in their city while they're just doing their day to day. And it can come off quite Orwellian, right? To have that level of surveillance leveled at us, a populace, by our government, especially our local government. Personally, my feelings on it is, I think too much surveillance, is, you don't want to encroach on people's privacy, on their freedom, on their ability to feel safe in their community. And a lot of people don't feel safe with a constant mechanical eye on them.
Right.
And so I would urge those in local city government, especially our mayor, Katie Wilson, who's a person I have great respect for. I would urge her to find that healthy middle. I would urge her to, understand the useful aspects of these technologies without pushing it too far to a level that people get so uncomfortable, or dare I say afraid,
Right.
of the amount of surveillance that our local government is having over us. I wear a body camera, right? I go out and again, not only for accountability, but to make sure that whenever I intervene in a crime, right, this is an evidence gatherer, right? And so I definitely see the usefulness of that mechanical eye, but I only ever turn this on when I need to, right? I'm not filming everybody all the time. So that's, it's kind of a difficult question. You can see the positive aspects of both sides, and you can see the negative aspects, but I think that there is a healthy middle there. And like I said earlier, I would urge our mayor, Katie Wilson, to find that, because the people that voted her into office deserve to feel safe. Doesn't mean that we should do, we should just, totally trash the idea. I mean, I think that there's some workshopping to be done for sure.
So on that, one question I have for you is, what do you think, like, if there were a few things that you would like to see the mayor and city council do to make the city safer, or rather, I should say, to heal those aspects of injustice you saw outside of your door that, that inspired you to become the Red Ranger? What would those things be?
So, that's also a really great question. So thank you so much for asking. I think that, and with this, with Katie Wilson's new leadership, I think that a lot of things are possible. But one of the things I always get back to is, if we could fix the conditions that make me necessary, then I wouldn't be here. Right? People ask, well, why do you do this? How long, like, when would you stop? And, you know, in a world where there isn't so much violent crime in our communities, in a world where people aren't afraid of that, in a world where, you know, like I said, we live in one of the most affluent cities in the world, where some of the richest people on the planet live in our city. And you can have some of the richest people on the planet live here, and also see people struggling in tents or less on our streets. That's not okay. So I'd like to see a much more comprehensive shelter and public outreach programs that are offered to our homeless neighbors, especially working in the ER. Right, we get lots of people who come in seeking resources, right? And unfortunately, we have these, and a lot of the times in the ER, we just have these pamphlets that we can give to people that, okay, here's some shelter numbers you could call. Not all those shelters are going to accept everybody. They fill up. They're almost always full. There's no shelters in the greater Seattle area that have a plethora of openings. It's just not the case, right? But if we had a more comprehensive system to help folks like that, I think that if people had an easier time getting this help, they wouldn't, and just make it more accessible, then we wouldn't see so many people like this. We wouldn't see so many people needing our help. I wouldn't have nearly as many people to go hand sandwiches to, you know. And we've been kind of derided before, right? Instead of, because one of the acronyms, right, for what we do is the RLSH, real life superhero. And we've been derided, actually, in fact, by one of the people who coined this term was Phoenix Jones himself. You know, he was a big crime fighter. He wanted to go out and fight bad guys, which, sure, an important part of the work, but it's not the only part of the work.
Right.
And he called us real life sandwich handlers. And he kind of used that as a diss, right? But
yeah,
I wear it as a badge of pride. Absolutely, I'm a real life sandwich handler. That's just as important.
Honestly,
and the less people, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, you know, like, honestly, for folks who steal because they need money for food, or break into a car because they're looking for either something they can pawn for money for food, or even a warm place, maybe just to like chill for a second. Maybe the real life sandwich handler might make that difference where they reconsider their actions.
Exactly. If we could do preventative care, which we do in medicine, right?
Yeah.
An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right?
Absolutely.
And that's part of our philosophy on the Emerald City Heroes organization. And right, nobody commits these crimes out of a vacuum. Nobody who's doing just fine in life typically has a motivation to commit these crimes. So when you can answer the needs of the people, when you can answer the needs of those who are struggling, you're not going to see these problems that so many people complain about on whatever side of whatever political aisle. That's not even part of it. You know, people complain all the time that, oh, Seattle's dirty. It's got all these homeless people. Why do we have such a homeless problem?
Yeah.
You know, and especially and not even just in Seattle, in the United States at large.
Yeah.
You know, a country that spends a crazy exorbitant amount of money on a military budget that has, you know, one of the worst homeless problems in the world. You go to other countries and they see homeless people in our country. They're like, yeah, we don't have that here.
So,
you know, these are problems we could fix. So going back to local government, though, I would like to see these shelter and public health programs expanded, better funded. I think that the people that give that level of help should be better taken care of. I think the staff at these places should be better considered. And I think that a lot more funding needs to go towards these shelter programs and these crisis prevention programs, especially people who find themselves in sudden mental health crises or find themselves in sudden conditions of homelessness, etc. They need a lifeline to reach out to. And
Right.
when that a lot of people, right, I've had people come to me, right, especially even in the ER, right, or in the hospitals,
Right.
and we can give them the resources, but we'll see them the next day. And a question that I've had for them is, well, why didn't you accept the resources we gave you? And an answer I get all the time is, well, I did, but they were full, or, well, they didn't have the time for me, or, and it's like, you can, when you try, and even from our perspective, we try and lead people to the system, but the system fails them anyway.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a lot less of that.
Right. Right. Thank you for that. I really appreciate your answer. It's very thoughtful, and it kind of raised a couple of questions. So, on a national level, I gotta ask, because I know some of our listeners will definitely be interested in this. But how do you feel about ICE and what's been happening now? Because we live in a time where the federal government is literally entering in our cities and kidnapping people without due process, without sometimes literally just because of the color of their skin, or just because they might have an accent or speak a language other than English in public.
Right. And I know a lot of people might find this controversial. I certainly don't. Get ICE the hell out of Seattle. Get ICE the hell out of every major city in America.
You guys heard it first. Our own superhero team is about swooping.
We're not for them. If we see them in the streets, we're confronting them. They are not here to kidnap our neighbors, and we won't stand for it.
Ooh. Oh, dang. Okay. See, you almost made me slip up and cuss on air. Oh my God. There we go. That being said, so just know, at the Unmasked Agenda, we do not find that controversial. All right, I was just curious. I was like, okay, I'm liking that we have our own superhero organization, but I gotta make sure they're on level. So let's talk a little bit more about the history of Seattle superheroes, because one of the things I've noticed, so I'm originally from back east, and I know, like, we've had our own superheroes, we've had kind of vigilantes, which I know you made it clear that you're not doing vigilantism, and I'm not trying to label it as that, but we've also had public we've had we've had if you will citizens launch their own public safety committees and do charity work and stuff like that. But Seattle seems to have a unique relationship with superheroes developing here. But so I'm wondering, why do you think Seattle has a tendency has had such a robust superhero movement, especially in like the last 20 years?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I said, I've been at this for 13 years now, and I wasn't the first to do it here, right? And I will, like, as much as of a bad rap as Phoenix Jones has gotten, right? He can be credited with a lot of things. He did kind of start a movement, especially here, that got a lot of people on board. And, that led to my personal mentor, El Caballero, being led on board. And he kind of gave me the Jedi training, as it were, to raise me into the role I am in now. And I think that ever since he started, that was kind of one thing, right? We kind of already had somebody who broke the ice there.
Mm-hmm.
But another thing, right? It just goes back to that thing I said before. We're one of the most affluent. It's this weird microcosm in Seattle, right? And I think if you look at Seattle's history, there's a lot of other interesting sort of births that have happened in our society, right? The birth of, we had Nirvana, we had the grunge movement. There's a lot of really interesting sort of social microcosms that kind of sprang out of Seattle culture. And I think that the superhero movement can sort of relate to those. Again, we are one of the most affluent cities in America. right?
Yeah.
We're the home of Jeff Bezos, and
Right.
we're the home of we're the home of Bill Gates,
Right.
and we whenever you have people like that sharing the same city streets as people who don't get enough to eat, that
Right.
just screams, right? That screams that something's got to be done. So I think that had a lot to do with it, that enough people in this quirky little city had kind of enough quirkiness and enough courage and enough of seeing that. And those elements combined kind of made for this perfect mix of conditions to sort of birth this community.
Mm.
Nobody likes to, in a city where we're supposed to feel safe, worry about if their car's going to get broken into, or
Right.
worry about if their wallet's going to get stolen on their way home from a night out, right? Or worry if they're going to be safe going out drinking with a group of amongst other people they may not know,
Right.
right? It's not just people getting robbed. There's all sorts of violent crime that happens, and everybody deserves to feel safe, but people don't. And we like to talk about how much we love each other here, but you go out to the streets and people are still afraid. So
Yeah.
I think that was the mix of conditions here that kind of made it unique. But I will also say that it's not necessarily unique to Seattle. We definitely have our own special kind of propensity towards superheroism here in Seattle, but it's not alone. We have superheroes like my personal friend Skyline, that many may know, out in Albuquerque. We have the Devil in Brooklyn, another personal friend of mine in New York. We have the Bay Area superheroes and the Extreme Justice League out in California. We have in San Francisco. So we have people all over. We have I have friends in Portland that I've connected with and worked with down there doing superhero stuff, and so we have people all over the place that sort of picked up the mantle. And I think it's because they can find those problems there, right? And all it takes is just enough courage and conviction and just a dash of crazy to decide to do what we do. I'm grateful that the movement is not isolated to Seattle. I'm grateful that I have so many other allies around the country and around the world. And it's not alone in the United States either. We have people in South America. We have real life superheroes in Japan. They're all over the world.
Right.
And I'm happy to be such a such a present part of this movement that we're seeing, because right, the goal was to heal Seattle, and now the goal is to heal the world. So we're gonna keep doing it.
I can dig it. So last but not least, before we go, because we got 3 minutes. So Batman, Daredevil always seemed like an interesting comparison to me, because on the one hand, I'm not going to go through my opinion of it. I'm more curious about your opinion. So which one of those two characters do you gravitate towards? And what do you think?
Personally, probably Daredevil, because I don't have near the money that Batman does.
Right. Thank you. Yes, exactly. Thank you.
I wish I had that money. I wish I could say Batman, but
then we could just fix poverty.
Yeah. No, if I had $1 billion sitting in the back pocket, things would be a lot different for Red Ranger.
I don't know.
And we've always dreamed of having like a big vehicle and stuff like that, and a lot more resources. But
God, I don't know.
I can relate to both characters.
Well, I'm guessing you still do read comics now, not to try to give too many clues to your secret identity, but you're familiar with the Absolute Batman run that's out right now, right?
Yes. Awesome stuff, by the way.
I know, right? It's Yeah, I love how even, and I think it was either DCKO #4, where they literally have the absolute Batman grill the main universe Batman on the fact that it's like, dude, you're just rich. Like, he literally says, look at me, I'm big and ripped and I've had to train, versus you when you're in a fancy suit and you're rich. Like, why are you here?
Yeah, that was pretty great to read, by the way, and I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, I'm a fan. Awesome issue. And I wish I was as ripped as Absolute Batman. My God, who doesn't?
Right? They just made him into a brick house. Like, what? Like, I thought they were just drawing him that way at first, and he's like, no, he is actually that swole in the book. And I'm just like, how?
I do my best, but hey, that's crazy. And as far as relating to these characters, right? At the end of the day, I can relate to both. And heroes are stories that are supposed to give us hope.
Right.
And I'm trying to pick that torch up a little bit. And I hope that I can give hope to people. And I hope that people can take that with them. And even long after I'm, once I become old man Bruce and I can't keep going, then I hope that torch stays burning, because and until everybody's able to eat and all swords are bent to plowshares, we're gonna keep doing what we do.
Absolutely. Hopefully you have a Terry McGinnis that comes along, but I'll just say this: one of the things I love about Daredevil, because you're mentioning you gravitate towards him, and honestly, I think right now his run is just, as I'll say this just as a comic book fan, like right now, I'm definitely looking forward to Daredevil Born Again season 2 on the film or show side, but I'm really looking forward to his new run in April, because his last run was good and the Chip Zdarsky run was like, but but I digress. But what I really love about the character is that he is he's a pro bono lawyer, by day, and really does navigate the legal system and tries to fight for justice, to fight for the little guy through the legal system. And Daredevil, and his persona as Daredevil, is both secondary, but it's also his not, what's the word? It's his penance for not being able to find justice for those in the system. And in a weird way, I feel like you have a similar energy where you go to work, you do what you can, and the Red Ranger is your way of taking that further. And
absolutely.
Yeah. And I just gotta say, I appreciate you being sandwich first, and also what you do with your day job, for real.
Of course. Well, like I said, happy to do it, not stopping anytime soon.
Absolutely. And with that, unfortunately, we have to end this here. It has been great talking to you. I hope that we can talk again. I hope that I can meet Echo, and just consider, like I mentioned it to you over Instagram, just consider me your Ben Urich, and feel free to come on back. And this has
got it.
The Unmasked Agenda on Rainier Avenue Radio. Thank you again to the Red Ranger, and stay up, stay righteous, and stay courageous, Seattle.